Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life.
Hats.
Brendo, we're back again.
Back
really
again.
quickly.
I know. Well, maybe. It depends on when you get it out.
That is true.
Yeah.
Published that last one, but we usually do weekly, and we're going to do 2 this week.
Well, we're kind of making up for lost time too, because I think we had a couple of spots where we've just done one every 2 or 3 weeks. We're getting pretty slack. Well, sorry, I'm getting pretty slack.
Thanks. But there's a reason. So there's a reason why we're pushing 2 this week. Do you want to explain the reason?
Other than the fact that it's Sunday night at 8 o'clock.
Oh, well, that's
and
true.
I'm tired.
Also, that's true. But we've got a time difference issue.
Yeah, we do. Because we have a guest.
We do have a guest.
Again.
I know, it's good. It's good. So we have Joe Martin will join us tonight or this morning for you. Joe's on the tea, we're on the wine. The reason we've got Joe on is I have been looking for, I want Bitcoin to be pushed out. It's all very well Bitcoiners talking to other Bitcoiners about Bitcoin. That's great. And we all love that. But also I want Bitcoin to be pushed out in different directions to other people. And Joe is a singer-songwriter. Is that fair, Joe?
Yeah.
And so we're going to have a bit of a chat about your music, then we're going to have a chat about Bitcoin, but in between, through the magic of podcasting and audio, we're going to drop in a track. And then we'll get to that when we get to that. But first of all, do you want to introduce yourself and what it is that you do, where you are, where you're from? Tell your story, mate.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on the pod, guys. I really appreciate it. Name's Joe Martin. I'm a singer-songwriter based in the UK. I've been writing songs for about 10 years now.
And you're only 12. How old are you?
I'm 28.
Yeah.
He looks a lot better than us.
Yeah.
Wearing well. Bitcoin's not aged me that much. But I've been doing music all my life. So from the age of like 5 or 6, I started singing and started off playing piano, doing all the classical stuff really, and then picked up a guitar early teens, sort of taught myself the basics, and then knew I always wanted to write songs, but kind of didn't really have enough life experience until I sort of got to like late teens, even early 20s really, to start like really get off the ground writing songs. But it's something I've always wanted to do. And since sort of like 2016, I've been sort of trying to do it professionally and building up a name for myself here in the UK, like touring quite a lot. And obviously the past couple of years, well, 2020, 21 kind of just flew out the window, but as it did for everyone. But I've been out to the States a few times, been out to Nashville a few times, gigging out there and writing with some great people, because the kind of music I do, I try not to pigeonhole myself too much, but I'd say it's pretty close to like country, Americana sort of stuff. So I had to get out to Nashville at some point, and I've been out there a few times now. I love it out there. The home of country music. It's got a great vibe. And then, so I've released several EPs over the past few years, and I finally got round to putting out my debut album, which is out in a couple of months, and I'm taking it on tour next month around the UK on a 14-date tour with my band. So that should be pretty cool.
Awesome. So you're signed, or you're sort of self-published?
No, I'm completely independent. So I've produced this album 100% myself, self-funded, booked the tour myself, and
Wow.
I'm kind of acting with my own label. Really, it's a lot of work, a lot of admin. Like 99.9% of the time is like admin and sorting stuff out, and the 0.1% of the time is actually playing on stage.
Yeah.
Mad, but it's good fun at the same time.
So how difficult is it as a musician, where are we, 2023, to like, I guess there's competition coming at people from all angles. So how do you build a name for yourself and differentiate yourself from other people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm kind of in like a bit of a niche, genre here. Like country's not that big in the UK, still. Obviously it's huge in the States. It's quite big in Europe, but in the UK it is growing, but it's not that big. So there's still like if you're an artist, you're still quite like a big fish in a little pond because there's not many other artists doing it. But it is tough. Like any artist doing their own music, it's always tough. Like especially when you're starting off. I do a lot of like cover gigs as well, and that for like bread and butter sort of thing. And you see a lot of people doing tribute stuff these days. Like a lot of people go into the tribute game, and it's quite tempting because the money's really good.
Yeah.
If you get it right, but it's just not that fulfilling, really. But no, it's tough. You just got to do a lot, and it's all live now, right? Like any revenues and income is coming from live gigs. So it's just about like making it up on the volume of gigs, really. Because as we're probably going to get into, like there's not really anything to be had selling the music anymore, like on the recorded side of things, because everything's streamed, listened to free by people. So that's sort of like revenue stream for the musician has kind of been taken away slowly as the internet's, developed. And
well, it's really, I mean, I guess it's really an industry. I mean, it always has been, but it's so much more so an industry for the huge mega acts, and little guys just don't get a go, don't get a run in at all.
Are you
that's
able
definitely sorry.
I was going to say, was are you able to put any numbers to that as well? Like in terms of like how many streams do you need to get from listeners before that makes any sort of money at all, or what equates to £1 or $1 or whatever?
So from what I've read, and I mean, you got to take it with a pinch of salt because I don't really know, like who knows, but they say that like you need 250 streams for $1, I think.
Jesus.
So it's, I mean, I should have got the numbers to put things in perspective. Like I know people that have had a couple million streams on stuff, and they say they haven't still not seen any money from that.
Jesus.
Wow.
But like to put it in perspective, I was saying this on a local radio station recently. I'm like, yeah, you need 250 streams for a dollar. And then like I sell one CD at a show for £15 off one person.
Mm-hmm.
So how many? What's that? That's like 4,000. Is it like 3 and a bit thousand streams for that one CD?
Yeah.
So like so for the same income as what one person would give me when they buy a CD, and I sell quite a few CDs at shows. Like I'm still lucky enough to be in the genre that people still buy merch. It's like, man, like that one person that's bought that CD, it would have taken 3,000 or 4,000 people to listen.
Make that
online. And it's mind blowing, yeah. So if you're selling like 10 CDs a night, which I do fairly frequently, it's like, man, that's like 30,000, 40,000 people a night, like equivalent online would have taken for that same amount of money.
So does that then take you to the point where you kind of don't really care about the online, that you have to use it and to build the following, but it's actually not, it's never going to be about the money on it online?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's kind of like seen as a loss leader now, which is kind of weird. It's like your main product is a loss leader to sort of get people into live shows almost, and selling physical merch like t-shirts or whatever else you're selling. So yeah, it's kind of weird, really, but it's where we're at. It's the world we're living in. And maybe Bitcoin can fix this, roundabout way.
Sorry, go on.
Before we get to that, just a quick question about the country music. So were you always a country music kid, or did you kind of, grow into it? Did you just decide it was a bit of a niche that you could have a crack at?
Yeah, I definitely wasn't into it as a kid. I grew up like listening to what my parents listened to, basically. It was like 60s, 70s stuff. There was some country stuff in there, but yeah, I kind of was like singing folk, like British, like traditional folk stuff, really, in my teens. And then I came across country music because of this. Well, it was this TV show, Nashville, came out in the UK. A lot of UK musicians cite this show as being like an influence on them. And I was listening to the songs on this TV show, and I was like, these are great. Like, I love this kind of music. And then started discovering more sort of modern country acts that were coming out of Nashville, and like
Throw a
dug
couple
into
at me. Throw a couple at me.
that. Like Casey Musgraves was an early one that I listened to.
Yeah.
And then like Chris Stapleton,
Oh,
and
they're my two. They're my two guys.
yeah,
Love
and
them.
then Jason Isbell.
Yeah.
Brent Cobb is lesser known, but he's great. Yeah, and I just discovered this whole new world of music, and I just got really excited about it. And I was just like, yeah, I want to start writing songs like this. And it was the lyric, it was like the story side of it all that hooked me in. Like they're very lyric based, and they're very clever with their wording. And it's they're not using any fancy language. It's just very basic, plain, ordinary. It's like layman's poetry, I call it. It's just like pretty basic, but it's the way the words are crafted. You look at some songs and it's like they're almost perfect. Like you couldn't take one word out of there, you know. And that's what drew me to it. So I sort of say my songs are quite story based, really.
Yeah. I for me personally, growing up, I couldn't stand country music because my dad was a huge Eagles fan, and I think when you're young, you're just like, I don't. Well, I mean, it's one point, like maybe early teens, you go, I don't want to be into what my parents are into.
Yeah.
And
Don't
then
realize it's actually all right.
yeah, and then because I've done some stuff, when in my 20s and whatnot, and then I started, thinking, a couple of Eagles songs are okay, and then it's same thing, like Casey Musgraves, that Slow Burn song just blew my head away. Chris Stapleton blew me away. So yeah, I'm down a bit of a country rabbit hole too, and the same thing with the storytelling. Like they actually put the time into crafting a story rather than just I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I joke.
And...
I say everyone's a country fan. They just don't know it yet.
Yeah. It's like Bitcoin. Everyone's in.
Yeah, everyone's a Bitcoin.
It's true.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, go on. No, please.
I was going to say, Dad's got a good taste. Eagles are probably my favorite band. I saw them last year in Liverpool.
Their harmonies are pretty flawless. Like I can't think of anyone better.
It was just like 2 hours worth of just non-stop hits, like bangers. It's just incredible. Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So what part of there's the singing, there's the songwriting, there's the performing, there's the being the guy on the merch, there's the guy who's running the online presence and stuff. Like, what part of it do you like? What part of it do you not like? Is there anything? Is there anything that's an absolute chore? Or
yeah, the admin. I just hate it's hard breaking new ground, so getting into new venues and stuff. Like the venues I've played before, they're quite easy to go back to. They know who you are. Like you're already starting to build up a following in that area with their listeners. So it's just the new ground that's hard to break. I really don't like keeping on top of social media stuff. It just does my head in. It's like, yeah, I just hate being over a computer all the time thinking about all that stuff. I'd rather do the creative stuff, obviously. But it's got to be done. But yeah, I'd say the admin stuff I really don't like. But you got to do it. It's like it consumes a lot more time than anything else. It's like, and a lot of people when they come to a gig, they see you on stage, they sort of think that's it, or but that's literally like 1%. That's what it's all for, and that's the time you enjoy. But it's all the other stuff.
Yeah. So it's like what's that Jordan quote, like, or whatever it is, like, why did you make like 70,000 shots? Because I took like 140,000.
Yeah.
It goes to or something like So it's just all the hard work that behind the scenes that people do. Particularly when you sit there and get to the absolute elite level. I love.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I love the creative process of like producing an album. I used to like the live stuff a lot more. I didn't used to like the studio stuff. But working on this last album, I've done a live album before, but this is my first studio album. It's been so much fun, and like getting the concept right and the artwork and everything, seeing it all being brought to life. It's such a good feeling once it's done. Yeah,
that's awesome. Is it stressful because you really obviously there's a fair bit of personal investment for you to actually get in studio and all that? Is that Do you worry about that, or is it just this passion that you're doing what you love, you're doing what you want to do?
Yeah, it is quite stressful. It's like for me, the stress at the moment is on this tour, because it's like my first proper headline tour, um, and people are paying like 12 to 15 pound a ticket or whatever. Some places I've never been before. It's pretty nerve-wracking.
Mm.
But it's like I wanted to try and do it right. I've put so much time and money and energy into this album. I've been working on it for like a year plus. And some of the songs they span for like over 6 years. So it's like 6 years worth of material almost.
Mm.
So I had to try and do it right. I had to go big with it, and try and aim high with it. But yeah, it is really. It's kind of like I know I'll hopefully sell the albums over all the gigs I've got over this year and next year and stuff. So I'm quite confident. And normally when I produce and release something, I do sell it, over time. But yeah, it is. But I've tried to not cut corners on anything I've done with the album. I've tried to I've done everything properly, but I've stuck to a budget. I've tried to not let it get too crazy. But it's like, and it is insane. It costs thousands and thousands of pounds to produce something like a 12-track album, because
Mm.
you've got like you got your studio costs, you've got your musicians that are playing on it, you've got your mixing and mastering, you've got your artwork, then you have to have it manufactured, and then if you're putting it online, you're paying to get it distributed, and it's like it all adds up really quick,
Mm.
um, unless you're calling in free favors from everyone, which it is good sometimes, but it's like I like to try and pay people that are working on it. I value people's time and don't want to take the mick. So it's been quite hard finding that balance. Um,
I
but,
imagine as a sort of up and coming musician too, you would have had plenty of experiences in pubs where guys didn't
yeah,
want to pay you, but they were saying, you're getting experience,
exactly.
so you don't want to do the same thing to someone else.
You can't be a hypocrite and complain about all that stuff because
Yeah.
that's not nice, and then expect the same from other people. So
Mm.
yeah.
So what would give us an idea of your crowds? Like who are you playing to? What's venue sizes, and how many how big are the venues that you're going to try and sell out, or give us an idea of that.
Yeah, it's all pretty small at the moment. Like the venues on this tour range between like 50 seats to 100 seats.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing the crowd will be sort of like an older crowd, sort of like 60s,
Okay.
50 to 60. Um, yeah, it's kind of strange. Like there's not many uh, younger fans of country music. Like all the younger people are people that are playing it over here, that are actually artists. But it seems that like I don't know, maybe for the bigger festivals, we got Country to Country next week in London. There'll be some younger people at that. Um,
I reckon there'd be a
um,
few old ladies there, mate, that'd be quite happy to watch you. You're a handsome dude. Actually, it looks like me, Hats. I think.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
yeah, it's I don't know, it's strange. It seems like for the smaller gigs, in any genre really, it seems that like there's less younger people there. It's like the younger people are going to the bigger stadium
Yeah.
gigs and they're going to big festivals, want the festival experience. Like the small theatre gigs and the little art centres and stuff. It's always a slightly older crowd, but
Yeah.
and they buy the CDs. So
Well, that's right.
Well,
They're the ones with the CD players more than the young ones, I
probably
suppose.
true,
yeah.
Is what have you seen it change at all? Like in terms of like musical tastes in the UK? Like if you're touring in the UK, you're touring in England, like are people coming to country or not? Is it generally just an older crowd?
Do you mean have I seen taste change in younger people in country music?
Well, I would say I mean, I'm not the expert at all, but I would say that country has become a bit cooler again. It's had a bit of a revival in my mind as a total layman. Is that fair or not?
I've thought the same thing, but I've also thought I'm now an older dad.
Well, maybe that's
so I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think it's quite a broad genre. I think it's one of those few genres that actually does span every generation.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Like you're not well. You might not be able to say the same for like punk or metal or something, but I feel like country music, because it's like what's classed as country now is pop as well. Like you hear all the
Yeah.
stuff from Nashville. It's pretty much pop music with a banjo thrown on top of it sometimes.
Well,
You know?
Casey Musgraves, I found a lot like that actually. She's got some tracks that are really could be just classified as pop and not country at all, I think.
Yeah, she's definitely gone that way, and a lot of artists do because it's just a bigger market. So like a lot of like the more country artists, when they start getting more popular, they just steer towards a more pop sound to appeal to a wider audience. But no, it is a very broad church, the country music genre. It does attract all ages, which is great. You know, I'm kind of like hoping some younger people come in because, like in another 10 years, my crowd, 10 or 20 years, my crowd might not be there. Need some younger blood coming in. Yeah, but what I found when I've been out to Nashville, like there are young people actually at the gigs, watching the gigs. But maybe it's just more of a way of life over there, and maybe that's not a fair representation because it is Music City and they live and breathe country music. You know? So maybe that isn't the best sample set there, but that was pretty cool going out there and seeing that, and didn't really have to explain to anyone what you're doing. When you get up and play, they just get it. You know, they're not country, what? You know. So
how easy? Sorry, that you were there. You were there as to play, not just to watch, right?
Yeah. So
how was that? Like how was that?
It was awesome. So first time I went out there, I knew no one, like literally no. I knew one person, which was a bit of a tenuous link with like a family friend that I'd met like once for like an afternoon when they were over in the UK, and so I didn't know anyone. And then the second time I went out there, the same family friend gave one of my demo tapes into a venue called the Bluebird Cafe. And like for anyone that doesn't know country music, like probably wouldn't have heard the Bluebird, but it's just a small little venue, but it's quite iconic. It's put a lot of people on the map. I think Taylor Swift was discovered there. You know, Garth Brooks was discovered there, and but for me, like I kept seeing it every week on this show Nashville that I was watching. So I you know had heard of this venue, the Bluebird, because it was on the show every week. So I jokingly said to Terry, my family friend, when you go back to Nashville, we hand in this demo CD to the Bluebird, and she was like, yeah, I will do. You know, and I thought, oh, she's just like being nice, and she's probably never going to make it there. Anyway, several months go by, and I get this email out of the blue saying, "This is Rob from the Bluebird. We've listened to your demo tape. We really like it. Next time you're in Nashville, do you want to play?"
Wow.
And I was like, this has got to be a scammer. Like,
yeah.
I was like, how is this possible? Why the Bluebird? And I was like, looking it up and Googling this guy, and I was like, oh my God, is it that demo tape that Terry? So I messaged Terry, like, did you ever hand in that demo tape I gave you? She was like, yeah, I handed it in like when I got back, you know. That's like they've reached out to me, you know. So
wow. How long ago was that?
That was 2017 now.
Wow. That's cool.
So I booked flights back out there, went back out, played the Bluebird, and then, but the cool thing is, soon as I got the date of the Bluebird, you can then go to other venues and say, I'm coming over from the UK, I'm playing at the Bluebird.
Yeah, that's
I wanted to play some other places while I'm in town, and all of a sudden, you would never have got a look in, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, we'll have a listen to you. Oh yeah, we like what you're doing. Okay, come play our place.
Yeah, nice.
So it turned into like, you know, playing sort of several small places as well. And then it was a bit of a foot in the door. And then it's kind of like, it's a good talking point when you're over there and you're talking to people in bars or other open mics or other things. You're like, yeah, I've got a Bluebird show. You just casually drop it in. Got a Bluebird show in a couple of weeks. And they're like, oh, dude, yeah, do you want to hang out? Do you want to write? You know, and you end up like meeting people and writing with people. And it started snowballing from there. And then the following year, 2018, I just followed up the same guy at Bluebird, like, oh, I'm thinking of coming back out again next year. Would you have me on again? They were like, yeah. So I went and played the Bluebird again, and the same thing happened again, and met more people on the next trip. So yeah, that's how it kind of worked out there. But it's so cool. I had to pinch myself when, you know, when it finally came around. It kind of felt like a bit of a dream until it was actually happening.
That's cool.
Because I'd been watching it for maybe at that point like 5 years. like this TV show, like that had started the whole thing that got me into country music. I've been watching this venue every week for like 5 years on this show.
And then you're there.
There, and I'm like, it looks exactly the same because they use a different Bluebird like setup. It's obviously a set for the show, but they've got it exactly the same. It's like, oh, it's really cool.
So are you like this because you come over as the English guy, are you like a novelty for them, or are you sort of exciting for them, or
I was hoping I'd be a bit more of a novelty, to be honest.
Oh really? Yeah, right, okay.
Ladies.
Yeah, it's quite touristy, so they get a lot of British tourists going over there. So
yeah, okay.
maybe if I was there a few years earlier, I would have been a bit more of a novelty. Everyone thought I was Australian though.
No, everyone thinks it's like New Zealanders as well.
Yeah, they couldn't work out the northern accent, I don't think, that I've got. So they were like, "Oh, you're from Australia?" I was like, "No, I'm from England." They were like, "Oh, you're from London?" No. I was like, "I'm from near Liverpool, Beatles land, and Manchester, Manchester United." They're like, "Oh, okay." But then I went out to Alabama when I was over there as well, a bit more in the sticks, and they were a bit more interested.
Yeah,
because
cool.
many people going through there. But
it's like when you're traveling, like you go to a little place, and people really appreciate you being there, and they want to, you go in the local pub, and the local people want to say hello, where you from, and ask your stuff. But if you rock up to a big city,
well, that's like you in Australia probably.
But I'm not. When I first we live in a little place in on the East Coast of Australia, and when I first got here, it was a much smaller place, and I was probably a little bit of a novelty. But now, not so much.
No, fuck no,
not so much. People either that or people have met me and they realize they're not mean anymore.
Yeah. Well, now is when we should actually put Joe's song on. So,
do you want to introduce it for us?
Yeah.
And then we'll do a little bit of Brenda will do a little bit of magic.
This is the title track of the new album. I released this as a single recently. I wrote this at the end of 2021 when things opened back up from lockdown, and I went back on the road touring with a Creedence Clearwater tribute. I was opening up for them on their UK tour, and it was kind of like got hit by inspiration again, being on the road. And the song's about like when you're starting off doing the music stuff, you kind of feel like all you need is your guitar, the open road, and freedom. And then as time goes on, and an empty passenger seat beside you. And then as time goes on, you kind of feel like you don't want an empty passenger seat. You want someone to share the journey with. So that's what the song's about.
Awesome. And what's it called?
Empty passenger seat.
Empty passenger seat.
Yeah.
All right. Ready? 2-bit radio.
Big city lights are shining down on me, different ones than yesterday. And although they don't spell my name, I know that they will someday. Drinking all the backstage beer, trying to drown out your tears. Man, it's been a long time since I've been home. God, it feels like years. Forgive me for my confusion. I got sold a rock and roll delusion. Now it's taking its toll, it's catching up with me. Got my foot to the floor, going nowhere fast. Don't see how I can make this last. Was convinced that my life would be complete beside an empty passenger seat. Beside an empty passenger seat. Another service stop, oh, another train to hop. Another corner street busker singing in the rain. Stringing my J45, sneak side nerves make me feel alive. But I think of you to try and keep me safe. I got sold a rock and roll delusion. Now it's taking its toll and it's catching up with me. Got my foot to the floor, going nowhere fast. Don't see what can make this last. Now I know that my life won't be complete beside an empty passenger seat. Beside an empty passenger seat. Beside an empty passenger seat. Beside an empty passenger seat.
And that was Joe Martin with Empty Passenger Seat.
You're a desperate DJ. One of you, right?
Yeah,
Radio
that's it.
DJ.
That's it.
Just going
What
to
do
radio.
you think of that?
That was great. Yeah, really cool.
You liar! Didn't even listen right there just now. We need to. We should have been listening right there just now, so we felt back in the mood. So we felt like we just listened to. We could ask some coherent
No,
questions.
but we have heard it, and it's
Yeah.
it's very good, man.
It's good. It's good.
Thank you.
So
Cheers, guys.
Where are we going to go?
We're going to go with what value for value, or what Bitcoin can do, I suppose, for a musician like Joe or a musician like Brendo.
Yeah, and whether you feel like the internet has killed everything from a monetary perspective, and then other than like your gigging, your merch, and all that kind of stuff, or whether that can come back again when you genuinely build a relationship with like a fan base.
Yeah, this is the big question, right? So I think, have you guys read any of Gigi's stuff on this?
Basically, why I do in the evening is read Gigi and it's fun. Yeah,
Bedtime reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I came across one of his articles, how value for value fixes the monetization of information. I've written a blog on my website about it, and I've included a lot of his blogs as like further reading in that. But yeah, it's the concept of, okay, the internet's a thing. Soon as anything touches the internet, any kind of digital file, because it can be copied infinitely and distributed infinitely, the supply reaches infinity, and therefore the cost is going to plummet to zero. And it's like, yeah, like good luck trying to monetize, information that wants to be freely shared. And if people want it badly enough, they're going to get it, Yep. Like it started off with Napster, and then I guess that got shut down because it was centralized, and then LimeWire for a bit, and there's still Pirate Bay now, which is more decentralized, right? And people are sharing, files on that. But then like from that vacuum, when they were clamped down on, like Spotify sprung up, and then, YouTube's doing music and everything. And I think like everyone's sort of come to the realization, or everyone's sort of in denial about it, but they've come to the realization that, you can't stop it. So at least these platforms have turned around and sort of said, well, we'll give a great user experience and people can listen to all this music, but, we're going to put adverts in there. Advertisers are going to pay for it if you're not a paying subscriber. So people are having to put up with adverts, and obviously now when you go onto YouTube, you're getting bombarded with like, it used to be one, and now it seems to be like 3 adverts for every video. So that's kind of ramping up a bit, but I don't know. It's kind of like, so the idea is you put it out for free anyway. You just accept that the information is going to be shared. If it's good enough, people are going to want it. It's going to be shared. So you put it out for free, and you just basically say, look, if anyone's found value in this, send me something back, however big or small. Like, people don't like calling it tips. It's not a tip. It's not a donation. It's like whatever you think it's worth. And if you like the artist or the podcaster or whatever, if you want them to keep doing what they're doing, it's like the only way that's going to happen is if you give something back. And a lot of the time, if you just ask, that's the whole point. If you just ask, people will give something. And I think the main barrier at this point is kind of like, has been the microtransaction thing just hasn't been possible before with the legacy payment systems, because you've always got that small transaction fee. Because PayPal or Visa or whatever you're using. Because they're kind of like a business with overheads. They've got employees and they've got premises, they've got servers, they've got costs, and they need to pass those costs on somehow. And like, they're not going to be able to do what the Lightning Network does ever, because the Lightning Network is just open source code, and it's kind of like can be run at near zero cost, and it's not got all these other headaches that these other companies have to put up with. So there's nothing really malicious in the fact that these other companies can't do these small microtransactions. It's just that it's kind of unfeasible for them because of their
I think, yeah, you've made a good point too, in that people generally will happily pay for something that they see as valuable to them. So a great example, I think, Radiohead, I don't know if you remember this, but years ago, Radiohead, was it Parlophone or some record company that they ended their ties with, and their next album, I don't know if you remember which one it was, might have been King of Limbs, I'm not sure, but they put it on their website to download, and it was literally pay what you want. So you could, you could go and pay $1 for it or £1 for it and download the album, or you could pay $100 and download the album. And I think that was still pretty successful for them. Obviously, they're a huge band, but that was like a really cool early example of a band just sort of going fuck you to record companies and just going, people will pay, and they did.
So just for your reference, Joe, we have this podcast. We have many pods have we done? 70 something?
This will be 75.
75, and we've been going for about
too long,
about a year and a half. Too long.
Yeah.
As everybody else said. But we're going for a year and a half, right? But it is pushed out there on all apps, frankly, but it's also on the Value for Value Podcasting 2.0 apps. Now we have had right till today 4,794 people who have given some value of sats. Now that could be 1 sat or 10 sats or 1,000 sats. It could be whatever. We've no control over that, but people are just, they don't have to, but they've chosen to. It's out there for free. I mean, people don't have to listen, but if they choose to listen and they get some sort of value for it,
still astounding that someone will give us anything.
I just find that I'm shocked by it. I mean, the value, like in terms of dollars or pounds, right now is not a high value, but we can talk into Bitcoin later. So before we go too far on, what I'd like to do, because I haven't said this on the pod yet, is on the Podcasting 2.0, you can, or certainly on Fountain, you can do splits. So you can, and you have a Fountain account. So what we're going to do is send the entire content of any boosts or streams of this episode to Joe, right? Yes. And we're just going to see what happens. So I'm asking, I don't always ask, and I feel a bit uncomfortable asking, but this I really don't. So if you just listen to Joe's song and you enjoyed it, could you send him some sats via our account? And you can go on yourself and check that we did exactly do that. That's exactly what we're going to do. And let's just see what happens. Just as a little bit of an experiment. Because I'd love to see the fact that I don't think everybody's going to pay. I think that's maybe 1%, 5% people may pay. I don't know. But it's just as an experiment. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah, and leading up to this pod this morning, my little experiment was putting on an old YouTube video of mine with a girl I used to sing with from about 15 years ago. And I said, if anyone likes it, send me a zap or, whatever. Because I was wanting to orange pill her as well.
Have you spoken to her about that yet?
No, haven't spoken to her. But I was kind of keen just to rock up and go, right, here you go, here's your share. Hasn't done so great, but I'm not a professional musician like Joe. So thank you, Daz.
But that's cool. When you say, "Oh, I'm trying to get someone else into Bitcoin," can you send a few sats so they can see what it's like? Everyone's happy to, send something normally to kind of help orange pill, if you will, or just show the technology to someone else. But like the whole, I think the barrier of like commitment with streaming sats just falls tremendously, because you can send 10 sats or a sat, but like it's like a tenth of a penny. Like, it's not a huge financial commitment. And then people might, after that might send a bit more. But before, it doesn't make sense with PayPal to send anything less than sort of £1. You can't really, probably can, but it doesn't make sense. So all of a sudden, like if someone's thinking, oh, probably should send a few quid, they already hesitate with that.
Yep.
Whereas if they can send like pennies, and if they can do it with one click as well,
Yeah.
the commitment barrier of that, rather than putting in like a long card number on on someone's website or something, it's just completely different experience, isn't it?
Yeah. Reduce the friction.
Reduce the friction, and it's fun as well. Like just seeing it happen.
It is fun.
Like that, I think.
Sorry, please.
So I was going to say that I think the main barrier really at the moment, it's not even people receiving the value for value stuff or getting set up with it like artists. It's the people sending it. Like there needs to just be a really easy on ramp for the person in the street to just get going with it, because it doesn't make sense if I was like saying to someone, right, okay, hop on Wavelake or Fountain and send me some sats. They'd be like, right, how do I do that? I'd be like, right, well, you gotta go to an exchange. You probably have to KYC yourself, buy some Bitcoin. Oh, and then you've got to get it onto Lightning, and then you've got to get it into a wallet, and then either top up your account in Fountain, and they're going to be like, what? No, there's like 10 steps there. No one's going to do that. So until there is something, and I keep coming back to this, like something like Strike, for instance. I know they're out in the US, aren't they? They're rolling out in other places too, but until there is an app where you can just download it, and like Uber, you just put in your card details once, and then you can start scanning QR codes straight away that are like interoperable. And they're seeing like for the early people, they're seeing like the fiat balance in their local currency. That until that sort of day comes, it's going to be the friction's still there. It'll come, in the next year or two. I'm sure.
Early days. You mentioned Wavelake.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Wavelake? Can you explain?
Wavelake, yeah.
Can you explain that? Because I saw a tweet ages ago, I think from them, and I'm pretty sure I signed up for like a email notification when things, when they were launching or whatever. But I haven't heard boo since.
Yeah, they've only just released the very first version of the platform.
Yeah.
So when I've been following the value for value thing for a while, and I was just kind of like sat on the sidelines watching all the podcasters have all the fun. And I was like, this looks really cool, because it was only Fountain at that point, I think.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, oh man, this is really cool. Like, I wonder if any musicians are doing this. And I was like, there doesn't seem to be. And I was like, well, I wonder like, what's to stop a musician putting a song on Fountain?
Love it.
And just like, and instead of it being a podcast, that song is like a podcast episode. Yeah. And I was like, why hasn't anyone done that? And I thought, well, is there anything to stop me doing that? And I kind of like looked into it. I was like, no. So I uploaded an MP3. This was of my single I released last October. And I was like, just give it a go. And then I was expecting like zero response. I was actually worried that I'd be like, put this out there and people would be like, what are you doing? I messaged some people on Twitter, and I went on Stacker News and put it up there. And like, I was just amazed by the amount of people that were like, this is great. Like, good hack, just putting your music up there, fair play, and sending some sats over. And it blew my mind. I think I made like £80 on that song.
Shit.
Yeah, which for context, like, is unreal. Like, it would have taken me 20,000 streams on Spotify. That's being generous, It's taken me like 20,000 streams. And I was like, this is nuts. And then I kind of was messaging the Fountain guys being like, this is really cool. Are you thinking of doing like having anything in the app that's just for music? And they were like, yeah, we're looking into it. And then at a similar time, I got contacted by Michael and Sam from Wavelake saying we're building this platform, and it's doing what Fountain's doing, but it's just focused towards music stuff. And I was like, oh, that's great, And in its current form, it's just a web player. It's not an app yet. But I think I'm sure they will be developing an app. But yeah, so they were like, can you help us test this? We're still testing this out. So, they gave me like a link to like to make an account before it went live, and I was just kind of like giving them feedback of bugs and stuff I ran into. And yeah, and then it went live, and yeah, it's great. I've had good response. I put my last single up there, Empty Passenger Seat, and that's doing okay. There's still not many people on there, but it's cool. It's kind of like, I think it's good to have a separate music thing where people can go just for music stuff.
Definitely. So it's not an app yet. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think when it gets into it, once it's developed for into an app, and like there's like a search bar on there, and they've got stuff to like kind of playlist and like categorize by genre and stuff like that, and it starts to become more of like a Spotify like experience.
Yeah,
and that'd be great, because a lot of artists will be like, well, hang on, I'm putting my music on all these platforms anyway. Why don't I put it on one more and actually get paid directly by fans for it? Like, I think we'll start to see a big migration of people come over to that, and maybe even start releasing stuff early on Wavelake.
Yeah.
Well, that's just that's where I found you in the first place. So it is currently embedded in Get Albi. It's one of the websites. So we'll get to this, I suppose, but I just started Noster like everyone else has just piled on.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have the Lightning wallet on it, but I didn't want to put in my private key into Noster. So I then installed the Get Albi extension, and on Get Albi it's got like a number of integrations with maybe, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 different websites just now, including like Noster clients and whatnot. But one of them is it Wavelake? Is that it? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
I didn't. Yeah, I'm not even sure what it was called. And then I was like, oh, well, what is this? Because
Wavelake is Wavelake. I keep calling it Wavelake, but it's Wavelake apparently.
Oh, okay. Is it spelled WAV? WAV?
Yeah,
right.
It's a file format.
Oh, of course, right. So, but yeah, so that's why I was like, oh, this is the thing I've been talking about. Everybody should be doing, and I couldn't understand. And actually, I'd heard Oscar from Fountain at some stage talking about it, saying, yeah, well, absolutely, you can already do it. And then when I saw somebody was doing it, I was like, oh, that's fantastic. And then but the problem, and I don't want to, this is probably mean, I suppose, but some of the Bitcoin music is just like some crazy Bitcoiner out there who's now started to try and make music. And I wanted to go at it from the other direction. I want to see musicians become Bitcoiners, right? That's better.
Yeah, so I went to the Edinburgh conference back in October, and I think I just put out my last single on a value for value thing, and a few people came up to me, they're like, "Oh, we've listened to it, we really like it," sort of thing. Are you going to start writing Bitcoin songs? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I mean,
not particularly romantic, Bitcoin.
No, like, start getting all nerdy math in there and stuff.
You get some Frankie McDonald's like sample or something.
Yeah, but no, I was like, I actually want to make a point of not doing that. Like you said, I want to just apply what I'm currently doing into this. I don't want to, start writing Bitcoin. So I just want to say, as a musician, I now accept this, and I'm now doing this just as another thing. So. Yeah.
And also, if you're a musician, right? And I love that is the Wayne Gretzky's quote, like, skate to where the puck is going. Do you know that?
No.
All right. Okay. So, but it's like, as a musician, it's like, let's be there when the audience arrives, because that puts me ahead of, everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought. And, I was like, these sites are brand new. They've got a completely different audience than what I'm playing to at the moment. I've had so many more listeners since doing this that would have never found my music before. You guys stumbled across it because I was on Wavelake. So I was like, it's a no-brainer. I just don't understand why more musicians aren't doing it. I've been tweeting about it, saying like, come on, artists, we need to like get on this. But it's kind of like they either don't understand it, or they don't maybe realize the implications of it, or they don't get the idea. And as soon as you say, oh, put your music out there for free, people are like, no, I don't want to do that. My music's not for free. You're like, well, it is. Are you on Spotify? Are you on YouTube? Yeah. Well, it's for free,
Yeah.
And then what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to do a year's worth of it. So it'll be sort of October time. Well, it'll be a full 12 months. Look back at everything, run the numbers, and be like, look, this was what I've made from Value for Value. This is what I made from all the other streaming platforms. And I know already it's far surpassed what I've done before with just the regular streaming platforms. So I'll say, look, it's a no-brainer for, indie artists that are, struggling to make income from recording music. It is a no-brainer. You're not losing anything. Like the worst thing that's going to happen is your music's on one other platform, but you're doing that anyway,
Yeah.
So I don't see any downside personally, but I think people just need to hear about it. That's the thing. They need to hear about it and they need to know how to use it. And it's still a bit clunky, it's not as easy to use as other things, but it's just going to get easier over time.
I mean, right now I pay for YouTube, what's it called? YouTube Premium or whatever it is.
Yep.
Which is like, I don't know how much it costs, like 15-20 a month or something.
I'm paying.
Oh, you had to pay more, didn't you?
No.
That was on. Oh, what?
No, because I.
Yeah, go on.
I got I got a VPN kind of little trick to. I think I pay about $3 a month now. $4 a month.
Okay, well I need to do that. But but
entirely legal.
Entirely.
So that's just, you just don't see any adverts, is that right?
Yeah, well,
yeah.
So the reason I did it in the first place was the adverts were driving me mental, but also, I have a daughter. I didn't want her to be advertised at by God knows who, and she, I can't keep her off, the devices completely. So I don't even want to, but I just didn't want her to be advertised at. So I took it out, and it essentially with YouTube, it gives me, YouTube music, it gives me YouTube video, and God knows what else it gives me. That's probably enough. But whatever it is, let's say it's $15 a month. Now, I would love the fact if the vast majority of the money I was paying was going to the person I was watching or listening to, right? Rather than just some massive corporate giant that's taking, 50, 60, whatever percent YouTube are doing.
Probably more.
So I guess that's gonna apply in music. But I guess your question is does it have to be an independent? Does it have to be an individual app? Is that better, or is it going to be like some super app that's going to do everything, and music's just going to be part of whatever your Twitter account or something?
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of like these big platforms and social media and streaming platforms and stuff. It's the network effects are so strong now. Everyone's on them. To try and get them over into another app or listening or watching something on a different platform, it's a huge task. It's only if it got to the point where the other app that was, say, a value for value app where all the content's being uploaded for free, but you're expected to maybe give something back. If that was exactly the same user experience and there was almost as much content on that app as what you're listening to, you're paying your subscription for, then someone might switch over from the subscription model to a value for value model, where they're like, I don't want to pay £20 a month for this, but I'm going to go on this platform where there's still no adverts, but I'm expected to. There's that mindset of I should be given something. I honestly don't know.
Have you looked at Nostr? Have you looked at Nostr at all? Are you aware of Nostr?
I'm on Nostr. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm playing around with it. It's really cool. I uploaded my single just as an MP3 file straight up to Nostagram.
Yeah.
And I was just like, does this mean I can upload my whole album straight to Nostr for Zaps?
Yeah.
And people, you can just upload an MP3 as just an audio file, and people can just zap you straight there as they listen. So it's like that changes it again. You don't even need a sort of platform. That's just protocols, isn't it? So you upload it once and it's in every client.
Yeah.
So someone will probably build a music player client, I imagine, or something similar on Nostr, maybe. There's so many things. It's all moving so fast,
Yeah,
it's hard to know what's going to happen.
I wonder what the guys that invented Mastodon are thinking.
I'm sure they're a bit annoyed.
Yeah.
But
so many years.
It's just competition, right? Competition is good. If something is better than you deserve to lose.
Yeah,
right.
It's true.
And because end of the day, it's the customer that's right.
Yeah, it is.
The person who's consuming is if you're producing something that nobody's interested in consuming, well, it's a hobby, right? But if you're producing something that somebody is genuinely interested in consuming, then they'll pay for it.
Yeah.
And you just have to be better than the guy next door. Like if a better coffee shop opened next door to your coffee shop and it was better, you would just move. You don't really have loyalty massively. If it's, you have loyalty to quality, and I mean there are other things too, I guess, but But yeah, I
Well,
think you're right
yeah.
about the music clients coming to Nostra. I reckon it'll be here by the end of the month, the way things are going over there.
Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy how fast stuff is being developed. I mean, you just can't keep up. I don't know what they mustn't be sleeping. The people that are working on this stuff. It's crazy. It's exciting. It's exciting though.
So tell us, just quickly go back to the touring then. Where are you going? What are when does the tour start? And what do you want people to know?
Yeah, so it's all up the UK. 14-date tour starts April 13th. I think the first gig's in Devon. The last gig's in Manchester, hometown gig. And yeah, I'm going everywhere. So you can find tickets if you're in the UK and you're interested. You find tickets at my website, which is joemartinmusic.com/tour. I've got a couple of dates in London, got a couple of dates in Scotland, going to Glasgow and Kinross.
Good luck.
Kinross. I've done the Kinross gig before. So, but yeah, no, it's going to be great. And most of it's with the band. There's a few dates that's just going to be me and the guitarist, but most of the dates are with the band. And yeah, we're just going to be playing the album top to bottom, really. I did a little thing where I sold some tickets for Bitcoin. I had a little offer going.
Nice.
I think I sold five tickets.
Wow, that's good.
That is good.
Better than none. You know, it's great. And people were like, "Oh, I've not listened to music before, but I saw someone retweet that you're selling tickets for Bitcoin. Had to listen to music. It's great coming along. I think one of them's coming along to the Kinross gig in Scotland.
Awesome.
So that's pretty cool. And I was like, well, I'll sell my merch for sats if you want.
Yeah, definitely.
T-shirt while you're here. So
do you have, after the gig, do you jump on the table to sell your own stuff? Are you the good man?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, yeah, wish you all the best, man. That's exciting. Good to talk to you.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I'm also gonna do a little idea where I'm gonna do a little value for value pack with every album I'm selling. But so they can buy the album without it, but if they want a little value for value pack. Have you guys heard of I think it's called the Light Sats? Have you heard of Light Sats?
No, go on.
It's a way to tip sats to people, and then if they don't redeem them, you can get them back. So you can get little cards printed up with a QR code on. And you can top it up. You can top them up with any amount. So say like I'm just going to do a pound's worth of sats, whatever. Get these cards printed up, slip them into an album, and then on that card they'll scan a QR code, and they'll go to the Light Sats website, and it will walk them through downloading a wallet, how to use it, how to redeem the sats, and then at the end I'm going to sort of say, circle back to my website or to any website on this list and try sending a few of the sats back. And this is how value for value works. Tell them to either go to Fountain or Wave Lake.
Yeah.
Because they're getting onboarded with a small amount of money and it's not theirs, so it's not like they're having to pay anything or whatever. It's like low friction. Get them set up with a wallet. Get them using it. Because the thing is, it's like, I don't know how much longer CDs are going to be going, because now a lot of the time people at gigs are coming up to me saying, I'd love to buy a CD off you, but I don't have a CD player. So
yeah.
And sometimes they buy a CD anyway because they want to support me, but then they've not got a CD player. So I'm like, that CD is just going to be sat on a shelf somewhere and never be listened to, which is, I don't think is the best way to support an artist. Like there's better ways, and I'm going to try and show people that buy for value is a better way of doing it. So that's my little way of trying to like get people into it and orange pill a few people, hopefully get them thinking about it.
I was just about to say it's not like the empty passenger seat tour, it's the orange pill tour. That's brilliant, man. I'm loving that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, listen, I wish you all the success. Thank you very much for taking the time. I know it was an early morning on a Sunday to come and chat to us. So yeah, all the best. If there's anything we can do, just reach out and we'll happily do it. So
yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you giving me the platform. So it's been fun.
Thanks, Jay. That was awesome, mate.
Cheers, buddy.
Nice to meet you guys.
Cheers.